What's up, everybody? Thanks for watching the video. I watched a really kooky documentary today. It's called the Pez Outlaw. And I was watching a video that Chris Gore did. Shout out to Chris Gore. And I was like, what a funky documentary. I think it's good. I think it'd be kind of fun to watch and do a review for. So this movie just came out. I'm not exactly sure if it just came out. I think it came out like a month ago, and it was going through different film festivals. And now I found it on Vudu, but it also could be in some other streaming services. But I found it on Vudu, and I think it was only like $4 to rent it, and it was like $10 to buy it. So unless I really am into a movie, I won't buy it. So it's like, I'll spend the $4 and buy it or rent it. So the movie starts off where Steve Glew, he was kind of a obsessive compulsive guy. He would get his mind on one thing and just obsess about it. So he was really in like the 70s and the 80s. He was really into toys. Especially the ones, the exclusive toys that you would get out of cereal boxes. You know, where you had to cut out the little square and you had to send them in. He got obsessed with collecting those. And then he just started doing thousands and thousands of mail-in collectible things and toys and knickknacks or whatever that was, part of the cereal boxes. And he was doing thousands and thousands, and then they made a rule that you can only do one at a time because of him. Because he would be ordering like 1,000 of the same one, and then he'd go to like a toy convention or something and sell them. So he had an obsessive compulsion to purchase these toys, sell them. He didn't really make a whole lot of money. He worked as like a machinist in a small factory, and he hated it. So he's trying to figure out a way to make money so that he could get out of working as a machinist, because he absolutely just hated it with every passion in his heart. So he goes to these toy conventions. He's just about out of his little knickknacks and toys from the cereal boxes because they limited him, and so that took his inventory down. So he saw somebody at the convention with Pez dispensers. And that this particular person, and it was portrayed as like a woman from a different country. I don't know if they kind of glorified it and Hollywoodized it a little bit, because they didn't specifically say what her name was. So he got obsessed with Pez dispensers. So he was going around and picking up every Pez dispenser that he could possibly find, rare ones, common ones. So that was sort of his new inventory. So he finds out where there's two factories. There's the American version of Pez, and then there's the overseas version of Pez, which is in Europe. So at the time in Europe, there was all kinds of different wars and excursions and all kinds of stuff that was happening during that time, the 70s and 80s. And then going into the 90s. So him and his son go overseas to try to find the Pez building so that he could try to get some rare stuff that nobody else has, because the factory that was in Europe was not selling the same merchandise as the factory in the United States. So he's like, there's got to be some rare stuff that I can make money on that people in the States have never seen before. So he got obsessed with going there with his son, and I guess he just kind of floated in there, and people didn't really question too much about it, which was kind of odd. And he made these relationships with people that worked at the Pez plant, and then nobody ever questioned, like, what are you doing here and why should I be talking to you? He kind of just existed, I guess. He was just one of these type of people that, he had an obsessive compulsive disorder. People kind of liked him. They kind of gravitated toward him. And they almost said that he almost looked like a homeless person that just kind of was just hanging out. So it was like, I was like, if it was me and some random person just walks up to me, I might be like, excuse me, what are you doing here? And can I help you? So I thought it was kind of weird where it was like he just existed in the world of Pez. So in this documentary, it shows that the Pezident, the Pezident of the company of Pez really started to. He didn't know him. He kept hearing stories about Steve Glew and how he was somehow getting in the warehouses. Somehow he was able to trade and sell merchandise that was only made in Europe and not in the United States. So this guy made his mission to basically stop Steve from trading and selling these Pez, because he doesn't have the commercial rights to do that, is basically what he was saying. So Steve goes around and he's doing the same thing, and he's got, he keeps going back and forth to Europe for years, and they haven't stopped him. I don't know if people just didn't turn him in, or he befriended people and they didn't want to scam. They didn't want to turn him in because they liked him. I don't know. Again, sometimes, they kind of, they put it only in one perspective, and they kind of tell the other perspective, but not the whole truth. They had one guy that spoke for the company, and he was kind of vague on a few things where he's like, well, yeah, we did this, and no, we didn't do that. But he never really went into it. He never really went into the weeds. So I don't know if he still works for Pez, or if he has still a relationship with Pez. So, because he was kind of he would tell the truth, but kind of, where he wouldn't give you he'd open the book, but he wouldn't tell you the whole story. You know what I mean? It was like that type of person. So it was like, okay, I don't know how much I can actually believe this guy, but he was in the documentary. So Steve goes along for a few years, and he's trading and selling and getting all these different Pez dispensers. Then his wife really starts getting sick, and he wanted to have some sort of long-term plan as opposed to just kind of jumping around. They were making some decent money, so they had money to kind of pay her bills and stuff, for her medical bills. But he wanted to spend more time with his wife because she was having a hard time. She was getting onset dementia. She was having a hard time. So he wanted to spend a little bit more time with his wife, but also still have an income coming in, because he still needs to have money coming in. Which I mean, if he claims he made millions and millions of dollars, why would you need to keep going to that well if you have millions and millions and millions of dollars? That was kind of one of those things where it was like, okay, I get he's making millions of dollars on these Pez's, and he's selling them to different people and collectors and all this stuff, going to trade shows and all that stuff. But it's like, if you have millions and millions of dollars sitting in your bank account, then why do you need to just keep tapping that well? Especially when your wife is getting sick. So it was kind of like, okay, I get it, but then it's like, I always question sometimes, people say one thing and they actually do another. So it was kind of like, okay, that's weird. So he comes up with the idea is he has a relationship with these people at Pez. So he wants to make his own Pez, his own style, his own the Pez dispensers that he made that are specifically his creation that he drew up. So he gets the Pez dispensers, he puts the Pez name on there, he packages them with the Pez, because he didn't have the rights to do that, but he made relationships with some people at Pez that allowed him to do that. Well, nowadays, LeBron James has shoes, but he doesn't own Nike. Nike produces those for him. So, Nike's got the rights to the shoe. LeBron just gets a piece of it because it's got his name on it. But they didn't have any kind of agreement for the Pez. So what the Pezident did is he basically, Steve had his for, I think, $20 a pop, because it was that was the lowest he could do with his costs and stuff for, creating and design and the plastics and all this other stuff. So it was $20 was the lowest that he could do. He couldn't do them for just a couple bucks. So what the Pezident does is makes the exact replicas of Steve's and then sells them for $2. So it basically completely priced Steve out of the business. So Steve basically was destroyed, mentally and physically, or not physically, but mentally, and his way to make money was pretty much done, because he got outpriced, because he couldn't produce them for any less than $20, and this dude comes and makes an exact replica and sells them for $2. So now, they say basically, okay, the Pez Outlaw is done. He can't do it anymore. So now he just goes to cons and does appearances, as the Pez Outlaw. And they came up with this documentary. And the Pez Outlaw said, Steve said that, he's had the story for 20 years, but he's on, this is the first opportunity for him to tell his story. So I thought it was kind of a kooky, weird documentary about Pez, and people were, and how serious they were about, like, it's Pez and don't you mess with Pez, because he's worried about investigations by the FBI and all this other stuff from a $2 little thing that people collect, and these guys worried about the FBI knocking on his door or being investigated for whatever it may be. So I thought it was kind of a kooky documentary. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it was the best because it's a documentary about Pez. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can say other than, it was a kooky little fun documentary. So I probably give it like a 7.5 out of 10. It's fun, it's the family can watch it. It's kooky because they talk about Pez and Pez candy and the little dispensaries for collectors and that sort of thing. So it was a cute little documentary. I wouldn't say it was the greatest thing from sliced bread, but it was cute and I definitely recommend it. We'll talk to you guys on the next video.